Columbine, the day America stopped breathing. They walked into the school with smiles. No one knew that just a few minutes later, that smile would become a symbol of hell. Two 17-year-old boys, one holding a rifle, the other holding a Molotov cocktail, decided to turn the familiar school into a battlefield. No one could imagine that. Where laughter once echoed, there would now be only smoke, blood, and heart-rending cries for help. Columbine, the name of what seemed to be just a normal high school in Colorado, after that day became a nightmare that haunted the whole of America for decades. People asked, why did the two students do that? What was in their heads that made them want to kill their friends, teachers, and then commit suicide? That question hung between horror and tears. And the scariest thing, this was not just a shooting, but the beginning of a new bloody era in American history. The 20th of April, 1999. The sky in Colorado was clear blue. The sun was pouring honey on the Columbine High School playground. Students were bustling about getting ready for lunch. Teachers were busy grading. No one knew that hell was creeping through the footsteps of two 12th graders, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. Both looked like ordinary boys. Black jackets, jeans, large backpacks. But in those backpacks were not books, but rifles, pipe bombs, ammunition, and a plan meticulously prepared for more than a year. Eric was smart, organized, loved computers and war games. Dylan was quiet, melancholy, vulnerable, lonely. They met at school, became best friends. A friendship built on a hatred of society, a hatred of everything they considered fake. In their diaries and videos, the two called themselves godlike, gods who had the right to judge the world. They said that humans were stupid, that society deserved to be punished, that they would become symbols of wrath. And then the day came. At 11:10 a.m., Eric and Dylan parked their cars at opposite ends of the parking lot. Inside were timed bombs, set to kill hundreds of students in the cafeteria at lunchtime. But the bombs didn't explode. The plan had failed in part. But the madness didn't stop. At 11:19 a.m., the pair entered the school grounds and began shooting at the first students they came across. Everything happened faster than any horror movie. Screams, glass shattering, and the crack of bullets echoed through the hallways. Blood spattered the walls. Books flew, students jostled each other, stumbled, and screamed. "What is going on?" a teacher shouted over the walkie-talkie. No one knew. No one believed. A high school in the Denver suburbs, a peaceful place with trees and birds singing, had turned into a battlefield. At 11:25, Eric shot dead Rachel Scott, a girl sitting outside eating lunch, just because she was praying. She became the first victim. Dylan killed Daniel Rawbaugh shortly after. For the next 16 minutes, they shot randomly at everything that moved. Threw smoke bombs, threw pipe bombs, laughed wildly. A witness said he heard Eric shout, "Today we are God," in the library, where dozens of students were hiding behind desks. The tragedy reached its climax. The two killers walked in as if on a hunt. "Who believes in God?" Eric shouted. A young girl named Cassie Bernal whispered, "I do." Eric raised his gun and shot her straight in the head. Later, Cassie's story became a symbol of faith, remembered by millions of Americans as an angel in hell. In less than an hour, 12 students and a teacher were killed. More than 20 others were injured. Police surrounded the school. Helicopters hovered in the sky. Ambulances lined up. Parents ran in panic, screaming for their children. The scene made America hold its breath in front of the TV screen. In the library, around 12 o'clock, Eric and Dylan shot each other one last time. The suicide. When the police stormed in, they found two bodies lying side by side, their heads smashed by shotguns. On the table were scribbled diary entries. "Today is the day we go down in history." However, the story did not end there. When the police searched Eric and Dylan's home, they discovered a homemade arsenal. Molotov cocktails, pipe bombs, TNT explosives, minute-by-minute and second-by-second plans, school diagrams, and videos of the two before the attack. In the video, Eric said, "We will be famous. The whole world will know about Columbine." Dylan sneered, I hate these people. They are fucking idiots. And indeed, they became famous not as heroes, but as demons. After the massacre, America fell into a mental crisis. People wondered, how could two normal students turn into monsters? The media delved into the causes: school violence, video games, movies, parental indifference, and even bullying in school. Eric and Dylan were considered victims of bullying, ridicule, and isolation. But in his diary, Eric wrote, "I am not bullied. I hate weak people." That sentence made all the reasons meaningless. Psychologists call this a storm of anger and isolation. Eric was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, a manipulative, cold, intelligent person. Dylan was severely depressed, self-conscious, and easily influenced. When two damaged souls met, they fed each other with hatred. Columbine was not just a case, but a turning point. After the 20th of April 1999, every school in America changed. Backpack checks, cameras, SWAT training, movies, music, and the internet began to be more tightly controlled. But the scary thing is, instead of stopping, the Columbine effect spread. Other shootings like Virginia Tech, 2007, Sandy Hook, 2012, Parkland, 2018, were all affected. Many killers even considered Eric and Dylan idols. Journalists described Columbine as the day America lost its innocence. Before, school was a safe place. Then it became a place where parents feared every morning their children walked through the gates. A free country now haunted by teenagers with guns. After the last gunshots fell silent, Columbine High School was left with the smell of gunpowder, smoke, and an eerie silence. Police walked through hallways littered with bullet casings, broken glass, and abandoned school backpacks. The white walls were streaked with blood. Tables were overturned, and in the middle of the library, the most horrifying part, the bodies of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, lying side by side as if they had just completed their mission and left the world together. The investigators said nothing. No one had ever seen such a scene in their lives. The news spread like an electric storm. America held its breath. Television was playing around the clock. Images of students running out of school, hands still raised, were shown on every channel. Girls sobbing in their parents' arms. Boys sitting on the sidewalk, shirts stained with the blood of their friends. A country that had seemed safe and civilized suddenly looked back at itself in the mirror and saw something dead trust. Police spent hours searching each room. They discovered more than 90 homemade bombs, from pipe bombs to Molotov cocktails. Many were placed right under the dining table, in the closet, in the parking lot. If all of them exploded, the number of casualties could reach hundreds. The bomb experts trembled when removing each detonator, because just a small mistake could cause the whole building to go up in smoke. The next day, newspapers everywhere were filled with pictures of the two teenagers. Eric, eyes cold as ice, mouth smiling crookedly. Dylan, face sad, eyes filled with abysses. They became symbols of youth nightmares. People talked, speculated, criticized, looked for the cause. Some said it was the fault of the violent game, Doom, where Eric was passionate about shooting and killing scenes. Some blamed movies, rock music, and the indifference of parents. But when reading their diaries, all reasons disappeared before the naked truth. They did it because they wanted to, because they liked the feeling of domination, killing, and because they wanted to be famous. In the basement tapes video found at their home, Eric and Dylan sit in the basement, dressed in black shirts and hats, laughing and talking as if planning a picnic. "Today is the day that will change the world," Eric says, his voice firm. Dylan nods, grinning wryly. "I hope they remember my name." The tapes were never released in full because they were too frightening. Police released excerpts enough to show the world that the two teenagers knew exactly what they were about to do. When they dug deeper, police discovered they had been planning for at least a year. They bought guns through legal loopholes, built homemade bombs using online instructions. They took meticulous notes: lunch times, escape routes, camera locations. When the police would arrive, they wanted to recreate the 995 Oklahoma City bombing, and even set a goal of killing 500 people. But the time bombs in the cafeteria didn't explode, and that's why the death toll was only 13. On April 25, the first funeral was held. Rachel Scott's coffin was covered with white flowers. Thousands came to pay their respects. Her father's speech moved the nation. "My daughter is dead, but her faith lives on." He later founded a foundation in his daughter's name, Rachel's Challenge, to fight bullying at school. Meanwhile, the Harris and Klebold families became targets of the curse. The press swarmed their home. Dylan's mother, Sue Klebold, lived in fear and guilt for the rest of her life. Years later, she wrote in her memoir, A Mother's Reckoning, that she had no idea her son was turning into a demon. Eric was different. His parents were former military men, strict, disciplined. But it was that cold discipline that made Eric hide his emotions, turning anger into a plan to kill. After the incident, the FBI released a psychological profile hundreds of pages long. They described Eric as a sociopath, a natural-born killing machine, and Dylan as depressed, self-conscious, and driven. The combination created a perfect mixture of hell. Psychologist Peter Langman called them a predator pair, a pair where the dominant and the submissive work together to create tragedy. The whole of American society was in a panic. Students everywhere were arrested for joking about Columbine. The school system tightened security, installed cameras, banned long coats, checked bags. Textbooks, television, and movies all changed. A new word was coined, school shooter. And the real tragedy is that, after Columbine, the word never went away. Filmmakers began to exploit this. Michael Moore made the Oscar-winning documentary Bowling for Columbine, 2002. He exposed American gun culture, arguing that America had a problem not only with law, but also with fear and the worship of violence. The film includes a famous scene. Moore meets singer Marilyn Manson, who was blamed for dark music. When Moore asked, "If you could talk to the kids at Columbine, what would you say?" Manson replied, "I wouldn't say anything. I would listen because no one else seems to have done that to them." That statement sent shivers down the spine. Was this tragedy born of silence, of society not listening to the cries of lost souls? Years later, investigators looked back. They realized Eric and Dylan didn't just want to kill, they wanted to be legends. Eric wrote in his diary, "I don't want to just die. I want to be famous. I want people to talk about me forever." And terrifyingly, he achieved it. Online, a series of Columbine-worshipping forums sprang up. Some teenagers were so obsessed with them that they called Eric and Dylan heroes. Some even dressed like them, took pictures with guns, posted them online, and promised to continue the legacy. This phenomenon is called Columbiners, people who worship murderers. The US government had to investigate hundreds of social media accounts because many later shootings, like Virginia Tech or Parkland, were inspired by Columbine. But among the hundreds of survivors, some still could not overcome. Some students suffered from PTSD, never returning to school. One teacher said, "I heard explosions in my dreams for 10 years. Every time I heard fireworks, I hid under my desk." Some even survived the shooting, later committed suicide, unable to bear the terrifying memory. Columbine is not just a case, but the wound of an entire generation. People began to look back at the way they raised their children, the way society neglected lonely souls. A prosperous America. But let two 17-year-old boys believe that murder was the only way to get attention. After the massacre, America was never the same. In every school, every morning, when the bell rang, parents watched their children with worried eyes. Columbine had not only killed 13 people, but also killed the sense of security that had been at the heart of America. Schools began holding anti-shooting drills. Students were taught to hide, lock their doors, lie still, not cry. A generation grew up with an invisible fear that evil could manifest itself in the classroom. The police concluded a years-long investigation. The official conclusion: the two perpetrators acted alone, without accomplices, but they left a dark legacy. The Columbine legend. In the years that followed, hundreds of other mass shootings in America would echo them, from copycats to sociopaths. In 2007, Sung Hui Cho, the Virginia Tech shooter who killed 32 people, said, "I suffered like Eric and Dylan." In 2018, Nicholas Cruz of Parkland, Florida, was also found searching for Columbine online before the shooting. Those names add to the painful list, making people realize that Columbine was not just a murder. It was a symbol of a social disease, loneliness, anger, and obsession with reputation. The US government issued a series of gun control laws, but organizations like the NRA, National Rifle Association, strongly opposed. The debate between freedom and public safety continues forever. Meanwhile, every year, hundreds of new shootings are recorded. And every time it is mentioned, people still say, "It all started with Columbine." 2 decades later, the school is still there. The library, where 10 students were killed, has been completely demolished. A memorial called the Columbine Memorial was built in a nearby park, with 13 plaques engraved with the names of the victims. Under each name are tearful notes. "You always smile. Even though life is cruel, I will never forget you. May your soul rest in peace." Every year, thousands of people come to lay flowers, pray, cry, and wonder, how could such things happen in a civilized country like America? Dylan's mother, Sue Klebold, has lived quietly for more than 20 years, always carrying in her heart a constant torment. She said that there were nights when she dreamed that her son returned, sitting at the dinner table, his face peaceful as if nothing had happened. But when she woke up, she found in her hand a diary with cold-blooded words. "I love my son, but I am also horrified by what he did," she wrote. There are no words enough to describe that contradiction. Her book became a warning to all parents. Look closely at your child, not just at his appearance. Columbine also changed the field of psychology. Hundreds of studies were conducted to understand the causes of teen violence, isolation, and media influence. The term school shooter profile was introduced into police training and behavioral psychology. Social media monitoring systems in schools were developed to detect early signs of danger. But the biggest question remains: why do people want to be famous for the deaths of others? In 2019, on the 20th anniversary of the massacre, Columbine residents held a memorial service. When the church bells rang, everyone bowed their heads in silence for 13 minutes, 1 minute for each life lost. Many people cried, including students who were born after the incident, but still grew up with the collective memory. On stage, the father of victim Daniel Rohrbaugh said, "We don't want to relive the pain, but if we forget, it will happen again." The footage from 1999 still haunts us today. Students jumping from windows to escape, gunshots echoing, cries of, "God, save me." These clips are replayed every time there is a new shooting. And so America sheds tears, argues, prays. But the cycle of violence never stops. Columbine has become a symbol of the age of the gun, a rift in the nation's soul. It's more than a crime. It's a mirror. When indifference kills humanity, when technology isolates people, and when evil takes on the guise of youth. Those 2 teenagers didn't just kill people, they suffocated the hope of a generation. But from those ashes, many people have found a sense of empathy. They've started scholarship funds, mental health support centers, anti-bullying campaigns, all named after the children who died. In recent years, the internet has been flooded with images of the 2 perpetrators, with captions like, "Legends never die." The government has had to intervene, eradicate Columbiner groups, and educate students about the consequences of glorifying crime. But the scars are not easy to fade. Every time a new shooting occurs, the name Columbine is mentioned like a curse. Looking back, Americans realize that the real culprit was not just 2 boys with guns, but a society that had forgotten how to listen, that had let loneliness turn into fire. Columbine is a lesson not just for America, but for all of humanity, that evil can arise anywhere if people no longer see each other as human. On a peaceful morning, in a small cemetery in Littleton, Colorado, people still saw fresh bouquets of flowers placed on the graves of children. Someone wrote on a small piece of paper, "We do not forget. We will never forget." And underneath, someone else added in shaky handwriting, "But we are still afraid." Columbine, not just a place name. It was a warning. It was a tragedy. It was a permanent crack in the heart of America. And to this day, every time the school bell rings, somewhere echoes a whisper. Remember Columbine.